Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. This afternoon we are here to discuss how prepared we are for hurricane season 2020, which begins on June the 1st. Joining us is our Unified Command, our team, Regional Approach. We have our Director, Colin Arnold of Homeland Security. We have Sarah Babcock, who is joining us with the New Orleans Health Department. Sarah, thank you for being here. Normally we have Dr. Vegno. It's great to have Sarah front and center, as she has been on the ground through COVID-19 and truly on the ground in preparation for hurricane season. So thank you so much, Sarah. Colonel Murphy with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We have Derek Bays with the Sealer Flood Protection Authority, East. Director Gassan Corbin of the Sewage and Water Board. Colonel Bailey, the Louisiana Army National Guard. Love when he says, listen, we're going to come early and we're going to come heavy. Thank you, Colonel. We also have joining us, of course, our Superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department, Sean Ferguson. We have our Superintendent Tim McConnell of our New Orleans Fire Department. We have Captain Behrens with Louisiana State Police. We also have Chip Klein, who is the Director of the Governor's Office of Coastal Activities and Chair of CPRA of the board. Thank you all for being here, but more importantly, thank all of our team who has been working heavily and tirelessly pre-COVID, and of course doubling down on our efforts with this pandemic. This will be unprecedented, meaning being in hurricane season in the midst of a pandemic. We are prepared, but we also understand that there are no perfect answers, and we will evolve every single day. We're reminded of this by Colonel Ebert, who is our Director of Homeland Security and Public Safety. And thank you, Colonel, for also being here. So without further ado, we're going to have our representatives come share with you how we are prepared. Now, I mentioned this is again an unprecedented time for the city of New Orleans and of course the state of Louisiana. We're in constant communication with all of our transit services, hospitals, shelters, and the like. You're going to hear more of this and more detailed information after me. We are ready. We have to have all hands on deck, in which we know that and we're prepared. It's really now more important, I say, than ever for us to not only have effective communication, but also understanding the responsibility and the roles that we all play to doing the number one thing, and that is protecting lives. So with that, I'm going to ask our first speaker, and I'm going to turn it over to Director Colin Arnold to give you an update based on our Homeland Security Office, and then of course we'll roll through presentations one by one. So Colin, I don't know where everybody is.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking all the partners who are with us today and the approximately 120 that were on the conference call. Obviously, this is a new normal. We had a tremendous participation upstairs with the mayor's briefing. We had a very limited amount of people in the actual conference room, socially distanced, and you know, this is the new normal, and it's working. And it's working because the relationships that we have with our local, regional, state, and federal partners are strong, and they have to be in this community. We've been touched by disaster, we've learned from mistakes, and we continue to move forward. Those relationships have been only strengthened by our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, June 1st is the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season. This week, NOAA released its initial 2020 outlook, and they are predicting an above normal season. There's a lot of factors in this, a lack of El Nino, warmer than normal sea surface temperatures, and reduced vertical wind shear. But above normal essentially means that we're looking at about 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 of which will be a hurricane strength, and 3 to 6 of those will be major hurricanes, which is category 3 or above. We say it all the time though, it only takes one, and we know this. I've talked about this before, but it's important to reiterate. COVID-19 pandemic adds a significant layer of complexity to the 2020 hurricane season. As emergency managers, we're grappling with 3 primary concerns, and that is public safety and essential staffing, evacuation planning, and the potential for public complacency and fear. On the staffing end, we've been fortunate. A month ago, we were affected, public safety and operationally, by employees who got sick or had to go quarantine. And yes, we've had city personnel pass away from COVID. We're much better. And the reason why we're much better now is because of you, the public, because you did exactly what we asked you to do. You stayed at home when we asked you to. You're safest at home now. We need to continue through this phase 1 and continue to move forward. I'd like to just say that it takes a lot of people to run and manage and respond and recover from a hurricane. We need those employees to be healthy. And there's a direct correlation between the health of our public and the health of our public safety people, because we're in the community too. So stay healthy and continue to follow phase 1, your safest at home. We'll continue to keep an eye on the staffing issue through the summer. Obviously, if there's a spike, this could become an issue again, but right now we're in good shape. Evacuation planning, second. We estimate that most people in the city will be able to self-evacuate on their own, and that doesn't change, although we would say in your materials you should be adding masks, face coverings, sanitizers, and cleaning products, both at home for a lower level storm, whether you shelter in place, or for a higher level storm when you have to leave. Keep those things, add those things to your kit. For those who can't evacuate on their own, as you know, we have the city assisted evacuation. 17 pickup points around the city, they remain unchanged. They're well documented. This will provide you with a way to the Smoothie King Center, and then in conjunction with the state, a way out of town. If we have to evacuate this year, the main theme of this is going to be social distancing and PPE, and I'm talking about medical grade PPE. Everyone who participates in the city assisted evacuation will be in an N95 mask. We say with these surgical masks and face coverings, my mask protects you, your mask protects me. With an N95, my mask protects me. And so with everyone in one, we'll have some flexibility using social distancing to make this work, and we will make it work. Complacency. Every year we deal with complacency because fortunately it's been a long time since we've been affected by a major hurricane. But I'm adding in this year my concern that people will be more afraid of COVID than they are of a major hurricane, and that is wrong. If there is a major hurricane bearing down on this city, the magnitude of that hurricane is much greater to the risk of life than the spread of pandemic. And so when we say, as a government, between the governor, Madam Mayor, when she says to leave, you have to leave. And that's just the bottom line. So as we announced earlier this week, NOLA Ready, part of the Office of Homeland Security, and the Medical Reserve Corps, which is part of the public health function, the New Orleans Health Department, are actively recruiting volunteers to assist her in hurricane season. We've realized that with hurricane season 2020, there is a public health and medical component to this. And the Medical Reserve Corps has 800 volunteers strong that we're going to utilize to make sure that we're putting in public health practices into the evacuation. We've had a really amazing relationship with a group called evacueteer.org for the past 11 years. That contract has ended. We're actively working with them to transition because they built a great base of evacuation, a great foundation that we can continue to build from. We truly thank Evacueteer for their work and encourage anyone who is currently with Evacueteer that wants to continue in evacuation assistance or any of our volunteer assistance that we have planned for the future to go to ready.nola.gov, and I encourage the public to use ready.nola.gov for all of your disaster, hurricane preparedness information. So you'll be hearing a lot about the steps that you should take to be prepared this season. You need to take the time now while you're safest at home to have your plan ready with your family if you need to shelter in place or evacuate. As I said, include masks, hand sanitizers, and disinfectants in your emergency supplies. And remember the basics to preventing the transmission and work those into your plans. When evacuating, to the greatest extent possible, wear masks or face coverings, practice social distancing, use hand sanitizer, and disinfect surfaces. You can text your zip code at any time to 888-777 for updates from the City of New Orleans, from NOLA Ready. You can follow us on social media at NOLA Ready. We're releasing a public service announcement today that will, I think, will entertain and also inform the public, and that will be seen over multiple mediums. We're also going to mail a postcard about hurricane season to every business and every address in the city. We're doing this because we are in a new normal. We typically try to reach out and touch people in person with our hurricane preparedness, but we can't do that. We can do it electronically. See ready.nola.gov. I'll just say, and I'm sorry I went so long, I've never been more proud to be a New Orleanian. The sacrifices that you've made for the stay-at-home and safest at home in phase 1 have saved lives. They'll continue to save lives. I've seen you bring food to your neighbors, to volunteer at testing sites, make masks for each other, host drive-by parties and graduation celebrations, and even more in new ways. We're a resilient community. We always support each other. And that's not going to be any different this hurricane season.
Colin, why don't you share how many of our residents have signed up?
We started this in-house volunteer program 3 days ago, and we have almost 400 people who have already registered for the training. So I knew our team could do it. I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the public because they know the importance of this. Yes, ma'am. Next we have Sarah Babcock from the Health Department.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon. We're letting Dr. Begno have a little time off this afternoon. I know she stands up here quite often. I'm going to repeat a few of the things that Colin mentioned because they are so important. 75% of deaths that occur in a hurricane are caused by storm surge and floodwaters. It is so important that people heed the warning of a hurricane. The immediate threat of a major hurricane must outweigh the possibility of contracting COVID during an evacuation. As Colin mentioned, it is extremely important that people heed the warnings, evacuate safely, either with your immediate family or by using city-assisted evacuation process. My team in the New Orleans Health Department has been working closely with Colin and the New Orleans Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness to make sure that we have social distancing measures and proper PPE in place through all aspects of our hurricane plans. As he mentioned, this means N95 masks for everyone, including our children, during an evacuation process. We've also been looking at our local sheltering abilities. We have resurveyed all of our sites to determine how many people we can fit within a shelter with proper social distancing guidelines following the CDC's latest guidelines. We have also identified places for isolation within each of these shelter facilities and are working closely with the Louisiana Department of Health, our local healthcare providers, and the medical monitoring station at the convention center to make sure all of our current COVID and potential COVID patients have the ability to shelter or evacuate as necessary. Our healthcare facilities have been hit hard, they have been busy, but they are still working on their hurricane plans, and everyone is working hard to make sure that we can meet the needs of all of our residents. As Colin mentioned, our Medical Reserve Corps program is also going to be assisting with our evacuation process this year. We've had over 450 new volunteers sign up for our program since the beginning of COVID, and we're now in the process of training them to assist with evacuation response as well, to make sure that we can not only perform our normal evacuation and sheltering roles, but we can do it in this time of COVID. If you're interested in volunteering with the NOLA Ready Corps or the New Orleans Medical Reserve Corps, you can sign up by going to ready.nola.gov. Finally, the most important role the New Orleans Health Department plays is in our communication, evacuation, and sheltering of our most vulnerable residents. We operate the New Orleans Special Needs Registry, which is a place for people with medical or mobility needs to sign up for extra assistance in the event of a hurricane or other disaster. Typically, we spend a significant time in the spring and summer out at our senior centers, our senior apartment buildings, and working with community groups to register these individuals. Over the past few weeks, we've been calling everyone on our list, and we've updated their information. They should get letters in the mail in the next week, letting them know the status of their registration, or if we need them to call us back because we weren't unable to reach them. Because we're unable to do in-person registration, we are asking every New Orleanian to look around them at their friends, family, and neighbors. Look for people who may need assistance and help them enroll by calling 311 or going to ready.nola.gov to sign up. We know that many of our citizens have been affected by COVID and now may have medical issues that they did not have a few months ago. This might be people who are on oxygen, people who now need wheelchairs or other mobility assistance. These are the people who we need to know about so that we can provide extra assistance and make sure they have an evacuation and sheltering plan in place. Again, you can enroll in the Special Needs Registry by calling 311 or visiting ready.nola.gov. Thank you.
Sarah, can you give them a little more on the nursing homes outreach there?
Sure. So we've been working hard to make sure all of our nursing homes are ready for hurricane season. These are obviously some of our most vulnerable residents, both to COVID and for hurricane reasons as well. So we've been working one-on-one with each of the 16 facilities in Orleans Parish to make sure they have plans in place, that their evacuation sites will still take them, that they are able to social distance in the process and at that evacuation site, determining the best time for them to evacuate versus shelter in place, and how to assist them if they have COVID positive patients during the time. So we really believe that we are in a good place. We're still in the process, but we think we've made some good strategies for each of our facilities.
And they all have generators.
They all have generators. Last year, City Council passed a new emergency preparedness ordinance for nursing homes, requiring some higher standards than state and federal standards, so that nursing homes could shelter in place longer, and for higher category storms, which may be necessary this year due to the threat of COVID.
Thank you so much. You want to introduce the next?
Sure. Next, we're going to have Colonel Stephen Murphy from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
So good afternoon. I'm Colonel Steve Murphy. I'm the commander of the New Orleans District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Mayor, thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this team. Disaster preparedness and response is truly a team sport, and I think especially after COVID-19 and now moving into an active hurricane season, that couldn't be more true. The Corps of Engineers is prepared, ready, and resourced to move into this hurricane season. Even with COVID-19, we have folks that are looking at the levees, we have folks that are engaged with the levee districts, with the parishes, with the city, and with the state. I will say that the HISDRS, the Hurricane Storm Damage Risk Reduction System, the $14.5 billion national investment to protect New Orleans, is stronger than it's ever been. And it continues to get strengthened right now as we have projects that are continuing to armor the levees, and we should see completion soon. Right now we have SELA projects that help deal with interior drainage, that are an aspect of the complex system of interior drainage here in New Orleans. We've completed uptown work, and right now landscaping is just going on, and we continue to make progress on Florida Avenue. I'll close really with a challenge to the viewers out there. While we have a world-class system, and I say world-class, I mean world-class, we have people from all over the world come to see our hurricane storm damage risk reduction system. It is certainly the most advanced hurricane storm damage risk reduction system in the nation. But it can only do just that. It reduces risk. No massively high flood wall or levee or pump station can completely eliminate the risk of these storms. And just like Colin said, it only takes one. So I'd say as we do our part in helping eliminate the risks, and all the folks in the room, I'd really ask the public to help do your part to reduce that risk by listening to evacuation orders and getting out of the city if it comes to it. Thanks so much. The Corps of Engineers is ready for this season.
Thank you, Colonel Murphy.
All right, I'll be followed by Director Coban from the Sewage and Water Board.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I did have my mask on, I just took it, so I was off the camera, just for the record. Mayor, thank you for your leadership. We've been preparing for the season, and we are ready. We have updated our emergency preparedness plan. We've been doing a lot of training with our staff, incorporating COVID-related protocols to keep our staff and customers ready and safe. We're keeping our focus on our canals. We're mowing grass and removing debris on all of our open canals. And we are cleaning our suction basins to increase efficiency for our pumping. We're coordinating with the Flood Protection Authority relative to the 3 outfall canals, should they raise the surge walls, so we can adjust our pumping operation to align with theirs. In terms of equipment, all of our 99 drainage pumps are operational and available. 18 of our 21 constant duty pumps are available, 3 are down for maintenance. 4 of our turbines are available, T1, T3, T4, and T6. And unfortunately, T5, as many of you know, is down because of the explosion back in December. We are able to produce in excess of 60 megawatts of 25 hertz, which is about 10 plus megawatts of excess of what we need during a peak need. Nonetheless, with T5, that reduces the amount of redundancy that we used to enjoy as late as last season. That's very concerning for us, but we've done a lot of things to accommodate that loss, and I will go through some of those things that we've done in a minute. We have 5 EMDs. Those were brought on as emergency generators. They were moved up online, so to speak, so they will be utilized more regularly during events this season, again because of the loss of T5. We're doing a lot of training associated with that because we haven't been using them as much, and our staff are not as equipped or trained to do it, so we're doing a lot of that in advance of the season. That is going to present some noise annoyance to our immediate neighbors at Carrollton Water Plant, and we apologize for that. And that training hopefully will happen on a regular basis, but not as intensely as you have witnessed lately. But again, those EMDs will become very crucial as we manage any heavy storm during the season, and we do recognize that they are loud. We have 4 frequency changers that we'll be utilizing more than before, again due to the fact that we have 20 megawatts less because of the T5. A couple things that we have done, and in one direct or indirect way will help the loss of T5, and I'm spending time on that because I want to assure people that we have done a lot of thoughtful and systematic planning in order to make us ready for the season. So one item we've done is we upgraded the control system on T6. As many of you, that's a newer generator that is reliable, efficient, but we've had issues with the control system. We've upgraded that, as well as added another control system in order to add redundancy and resiliency to that, because that machine is going to be, again, more crucial and more usable or utilized this season. And what we've done is we've added another feeder from that T6 to our Carrollton frequency changer, which is an adapter that would bring the 60 megahertz that the T6 produces down to 25, and that would replace the possibility of energy being lost, the power being lost during a storm. So that's a redundancy that did not exist before, and now it does. We have connected all our EMDs through what would call the T5 Turbine 5 bus, allowing us the flexibility to use all of them at the same time. Again, those are 2.5 megawatt each, so allowing us to use 12.5 megawatts at the same time. Although it's not a 20, but it certainly closes the gap. We have replaced our outdoor switchgear at the Kirby Water Plant. It's a very old switchgear, and that will allow us, again, reliability and flexibility in terms of how we distribute power to our equipment as we need to. T1 will be used, again, a little bit more frequently than in the past. We've made a lot of repairs to it, and it is ready to serve as needed. It produces about 6 to 7 megawatts. Obviously, the 3 turbines that use steam rely heavily on the boiler room, so we've spent a lot of time preemptively and proactively doing a lot of maintenance in order to reduce any possibility of breakdown during a storm. The gist of that is that obviously the loss of T5 would be felt. We're going to minimize it. We all know that we need to replace it. It's very costly, and we're trying everything we can to do that. It costs anywhere between $18 and $22 million to replace it. So, and that's money we do not have today, but we know it's very crucial, and we're focusing on working with partners out there to find a way to make it happen and replace T5 sometime sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Hassan, would you reiterate on the EMD, the testing, the requirements as we've been testing that equipment? I know Holly Grove, residents have been concerned about the noise, but it is imperative that we do so.
Absolutely, it is very imperative. It's a very good word, Mayor. And again, the training that's happening now is a little bit more intense than it will be in the future. We're going to continue to do some training, but not the same way. But those EMDs are going to be very essential and critical during any storm. 12.5 megawatts will be much needed. So it is something that we cannot avoid. And again, you will experience or hear those more often during a storm, not during a day like what you're doing now this week. So.
Thank you. You want to introduce the next?
Derek Boss from Flood Protection Authority, my partner.
Mr. Bays, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ghassan, too. I want to talk about partnership for one thing to start with. We oversee 192 miles of levee and flood wall, 244 gates, 8 navigable structures, and 3 massive large pump stations. We've walked and driven all of those structures, and everything is in excellent shape for this hurricane season, and I'm confident in that. But we wouldn't be here without the partnership that we have with Sewage and Water Board, with the city, with frankly every agency up here, the Corps, CPRA. We don't just start a week or so before storm season. We work year round for this point. I do also want to stress that just because 1 June comes Monday, storm season really is already here. There's already been 2 named storms in the Atlantic, and so we are very aware of that, and we are taking every caution that we can. Corona did impact my agency. I'm fortunate that it was right at the beginning, and we've worked through that, and we're ready to do our mission, fully mission capable right now. We have changed some of our protocols and procedures to account for that, but we're confident that whether we're dealing with both a regular hurricane or a regular hurricane and a high river situation like we did last year with Barry, that we can accomplish our mission and get everything done in time and protect the people and the population and the property here. On one last note, and you're probably going to hear this a number of times, but I don't think people hear it enough. We can't do everything. We can't take away all the risk. It's a partnership, not only of the agencies that you see up here, but it's also an individual and a personal responsibility. So I urge you, please, listen to your elected officials, whether it's evacuation, whether it's mitigation measures for Corona, whether it's supplies you need or to take care of your elderly relatives or your pets, whatever it is, please listen, take those actions you need, and keep yourself safe and help us keep everybody else safe too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll be followed by Mr. Greg Grandy from CPRA.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I just want to note that this year marks the 15th year, or this hurricane season will mark the 15th year since Hurricane Katrina. In the aftermath of that hurricane, our agency was created, the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, by Governor Kathleen Blanco and the Louisiana legislature. And we were charged as the single state entity responsible for hurricane protection and ecosystem restoration. As Colonel Murphy mentioned earlier, hurricane protection is a team effort. It requires collaboration at the local, state, and federal level. My agency's primary role during hurricane season is to coordinate with local levee districts, parishes, and federal agencies to make sure our flood protection systems are being operated as intended and performing as they were designed. Now, as Derek mentioned, hurricane season on the calendar may be 5 months, but there's 7 months of preseason. And in the last weeks and months, our agency's been working with local levee districts, parishes, and federal agencies to make sure our make sure the gates in our levee systems are operable. So there are 678 gates that are part of the levee systems statewide. Last year in the New Orleans area during Hurricane Barry, all of the gates were closed. The entire system was zipped up, both on the east and west bank, over in Morganza and Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes as well. In addition to the gates, we also do preseason operations of pump stations. On the west bank, the West Closure Complex was operated on May the 12th, and we also conduct exercises. As recently as yesterday, the CPRA led a exercise that included SLUPA East, SLUPA West, federal agencies, the Corps, the National Weather Service, and the Coast Guard. One important item this year, and it's unique, and I think Derek mentioned it a little bit, is in previous years, closure of our gate systems typically began H-60 hours or 60 hours before landfall. Because of COVID, some of our local levee districts will begin to close 72 hours. So instead of 2.5 days before landfall, some of them will start to close those 3 days before landfall. We urge everyone, it's important to tune into your local officials regarding gate closures and other orders. As I mentioned before, local, state, and federal officials have a game plan. We've been preparing, we've been practicing for a storm, but the other vital piece, and that's every family and business needs to get a game plan for hurricane season. For more information, you can go to getagameplan.org, getagameplan.org. Now more than ever, in advance of hurricane season, everyone needs to get prepared with a game plan, follow directions from your local officials, and stay safe.
Thank you so much. Who's after you?
Colonel Kenneth Baye, Louisiana Army National Guard.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Colonel Ken Bailey, Louisiana National Guard. Your National Guard is, as always, trained and ready and prepared for any emergency. The men and women of the Louisiana National Guard, Army and Air, we live here. We're your neighbors. We go to school with your children. We worship you in your houses of worship. And as always, we stand with the people of the city of New Orleans and the entire state of Louisiana to support state and local governments, citizens, and residents. Our response this year will be very much the same as in previous years. We'll support with the city-assisted evacuation plan. After the storm, we'll move into air, ground, and water rescue as needed. We'll then roll into food distribution at pod sites, as we'll call them. The bottom line is, as Madam Mayor pointed out earlier, we're going to come early, we're going to come heavy. Our motto and our mission are always the same: protect what matters. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
I'll be followed by Superintendent Ferguson, NOPD.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership and guidance. As my partners have said, now is the time to prepare. Right now is the time to prepare. Confirm with your neighbors, your elderly family members, confirm with everyone within your community to make sure that we all get through this together. The New Orleans Police Department is prepared and ready for the 2020 hurricane season. In terms of manpower, we are almost at full capacity with the exception of two. Two officers are still currently out as a result of COVID-19. Nevertheless, we are ready. We're currently in the process of testing our backup generators at each station. That should be done by Monday, June 1st. All of our boats and high water vehicles are ready for potential search and rescue missions if necessary. Each district has a boat as well as a high water vehicle to respond when necessary. We're prepared to implement Operation Underpass, that is the metered flashing lights at the underpasses, as well as our barricades are prepared for any vehicular traffic that we may have to deter throughout this process. We encourage our citizens to make their safety decisions right now during this hurricane season. Make safety the #1 priority. You heard Colin mention that about COVID, and many may think that COVID is the worst because it is quiet and because it is unseen. But the waters, the hurricane is just as worse. So we need to make sure that we're preparing in advance and adhering to what each and every one of our partners up here are saying, what our mayor is saying, and what our governor is saying as we are moving forward. The less you put yourself at risk, the less of a risk that you're putting our officers and our public safety partners at risk in order to save you and your family. And in light of the current health emergency, we encourage our citizens and everyone to make sure that they have everything, such as your gloves, your mask, hand sanitizer, included in your evacuation kit, so we do not spread or continue to spread this virus. Unfortunately, there are some individuals who will try to take advantage of critical times during evacuations and engage in looting and other criminal activities. Let me be clear. The New Orleans Police Department will not tolerate looting or any other criminal activity today or tomorrow. The New Orleans Police Department is in constant partnership with Lane, a Louisiana National Guard. We have met with them. Our captains, our leadership are in constant communication, and we are prepared at every level to strategically place our officers and our military personnel in position in the event of an evacuation to protect life as well as property. So again, please think ahead. Follow the instructions that have been given to you by our team today. Make sure you, your elderly family members, and your neighbors are prepared. And together, we all once again, will successfully and safely make it through another hurricane season. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief.
Next, we will have Captain Chavez Cameron of the Louisiana State Police. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having us this afternoon. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your leadership. And thank you, Chief Ferguson, for our partnership with our law enforcement partners here in the New Orleans area. On behalf of our Governor Edwards, Colonel Reeves, Louisiana State Police stand prepared and ready to assist the New Orleans Police Department in the event of a natural disaster or any event that we have to call for an evacuation order. We ask that everyone would plan and make preparation for you, your family, and your friends right now. You've heard that consistent message, prepare and be ready now. When the storm comes, it's not the time to start and try and figure out where you're gonna go, which direction you're gonna travel, or what family members you're gonna bring with you. Now's the time to start preparing in the event. You may have heard that a good game plan is the key to success. Well, I'll say it again today. A good game plan is the key to success. If you're not sure how to prepare, you can go to www.getagameplan.org, or you can download Get a Game Plan you can download the app from your phone for important emergency planning information and tools. We encourage you to stay connected and stay tuned, as you heard earlier, to the media, to our city and parish leaders. They will determine if an evacuation is needed for your area. For years, we've provided our motorists with information regarding contraflow on the interstate system. So let me talk about contraflow for a minute. Contraflow is an evacuation of last resort, and the decision to activate contraflow comes from our Governor Edwards. Louisiana officials are in constant contact with our partners in Mississippi and Texas to ensure that we work jointly in an effort to safely move our motorists out of harm's way. When contraflow is activated, please be aware that depending on where you are, what lane you're in, on the interstate, that will determine which route you'll be directed to go. What I mean by that is once contraflow is activated and you're on the interstate system, you can only exit or enter at certain points. For example, if you're traveling, as it relates to our New Orleans residents and surrounding parishes and cities here, if you're traveling on the interstate I-10 westbound, at Clearview, there's going to be a shift. For the lanes going to the I-55 area, you'll be directed into the eastbound lanes of I-10 traveling westbound. You'll then be merged onto I-55 and directed through I-55 up through Mississippi. If you stay in the right lanes on I-10 going westbound at Clearview, you'll be allowed to continue on through the Baton Rouge area. And vice versa on the other side, if you're traveling I-10 eastbound through the Slidell area, you'll be directed straight until you contact and connect with I-59. At I-59, you'll be then directed straight north to the Mississippi line. No traffic will be allowed to go I-10 eastbound into Mississippi. All traffic will be directed to travel I-59 from that point. I know that this is a lot of information, so just in case you need further details, we have more details that you can locate at our website on www.lsp.org. You can also visit www.511la.org for roadblocks, closed roads, and other traffic information. As you've heard over and over again today from all speakers, Louisiana State Police also stands ready and prepared to assist our partners with the New Orleans Police Department and the City of New Orleans. We are also here to assist on any reentry plans. And finally, remember, a good game plan is the key to success. So we encourage you to please start planning now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. I think that was the last speaker.
So as you have heard, that the City of New Orleans, along with all of our partners, we are prepared for hurricane season 2020. Now it is the time for our public, for our residents to get prepared. You have a major responsibility in this as well. In the City of New Orleans and our partners, we stand ready to assist at any given time. So with that, we'll turn it over for questions. And before I do that, I do want to give a shout out now. On today, we unveiled our PSAs for hurricane season preparedness. And our first unveiling featured our own Big Frida. And so prior to coming here, I got a text message even from Councilmember Helene Moreno saying, oh, Big Frida's PSA is on fire. So go Big Frida, and thank you so much for always responding to the city when we call you. You're always right on time. We appreciate you, and we also appreciate others who took the time to record PSAs for the City of New Orleans in advance of hurricane season. So with that, Ms. Latanya.
Madam Mayor, WWL.
Why exactly is a hurricane a greater risk to people than COVID-19?
Well, you want to talk to that? It's not just that. The spread is one. Go ahead.
Yes, so we believe that the risk of a hurricane is much more immediate threat. And so we see that our COVID numbers are coming down, and we believe that we can evacuate and shelter people in a really social distance way. And for the majority of citizens, you know, COVID, if they contract COVID, they end up asymptomatic or having minor illness. And so while obviously we've seen that's not true and COVID does lead to death, being in the way of a major hurricane will lead to more deaths than the spread of COVID-19. Does that answer your question?
It's based on where we are and how far we've come as it relates to COVID, and we continue to decline. And when you look at both disasters, it's safer for our people to evacuate.
Are you worried that people are more afraid though of COVID than they are a hurricane because they're used to dealing with a hurricane?
We are afraid of that, and that's why, you know, Colin Arnold and myself and, you know, all of us up here have reiterated over and over again. It has been, many years since we've had a major hurricane hit the city of New Orleans, and we are worried that between the fear of COVID and the kind of complacency that we see with hurricane season, that people will not heed the warning.
And understanding too that our public has been, they have feared COVID-19. And so reiterating this message is something that will be consistent throughout.
Any other questions? Box 8?
Do you feel as though the city is emphasizing more this year if there is an evacuation order that people comply because of COVID-19?
Well, I mean, every year, we're consistent in regards to communicating to the public that should an evacuation be called, they need to evacuate. They need to adhere to all of the warnings and guidelines that we put forth. And so, of course, with hurricane season being in the midst of a pandemic, we're wanting to just continue to push it even, I guess, at a heavier level because we understand that our people are fearful based on what we have gone through over the past 2 months and what we will continue to as we move, to phase 1 and hopefully towards recovery. We want to keep it at on their mind that it is safer for them to follow our guidelines and the evacuation plans that we have in place to evacuate in the event we call for it.
The Advocate?
Yeah, you mentioned that you wanted to have N95 masks for everyone who can't evacuate on their own. Do you already have those stockpiled somewhere, or do you already have those available?
Oh yeah, well, we're prepared. So preparedness is having the supplies and equipment that you need to respond when the time comes. So yes, we are prepared. We have them in our stockpile now. We are going to do, as you mentioned, the N95s for everyone. Sarah mentioned even for our children. And with N95s, it protects you, that individual. And so we're wanting to ensure our public that when they utilize the city-wide evacuation program, that they will be equipped with the supplies and resources that they need to be safe and that they can trust us to get them out of harm's way. So that's why we're using the N95s. But Colin, anything you want to add to that?
Got it, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all again. And let's we're saying that the city of New Orleans and our partners were absolutely prepared, and we are encouraging all of our residents to do the same. Get yourselves prepared. In addition to that, I'm just going to say, and this is unprecedented time still in the midst of a pandemic, and should we need to tweak, we will. And Colonel Everett's words, he says, no perfect answer, and we will evolve every single day. Thank you.